Hey, deserving listeners, The Ultimatum. Let's check it out and see what comes out of my face as I watch.
Experience questioning whether marriage in general would be something I would ever want. I believe, though, that by questioning the idea of marriage, some of you may have felt that I was devaluing your goals in this experience. Please accept this apology and know that regardless of my views on marriage, which, surprise, have changed since I got here, I have valued absolutely all of your views on the subject.
Wow. Talk about the high road. Again, I want to remind everyone about Vanessa's behavior early in the season toward Xander in particular. That was highly problematic, so that doesn't erase this. And for Vanessa, this is a high road. I mean, the amount of at least the way it was edited, the unfair behavior towards Vanessa from Lexi and I think Yoli as well. This is definitely a high road. And Vanessa seems authentic in this moment. There's an interesting part of Vanessa that she seems to not get engaged with the conflict or the quote-unquote drama. Vanessa just seems to be light about it or something. And I guess in that way, Xander and Vanessa are very similar. Xander seems very similar. Xander seems to just not get engaged. It's like, well, okay, you be you and I'll be me. And so maybe that's why they fit together in some ways. Anyway, so it's commendable, regardless of what Vanessa's done in the past, of what we've seen and what we haven't seen. This is definitely the high road. To say, I apologize for coming on the show and not taking it seriously or in the way that people wanted me to. And it's interesting that she was even able to identify why it would be hurtful. That's always the key in apologies, is that people will say, I take full accountability. I apologize. Yeah, I did that. And without saying, well, okay, what is it that you did and what effect did it have? Can you convince me that you understand reasonably that I reacted reasonably? And one of the ways that you can do that in an apology is what Vanessa said, which is that I understand that it made it feel like I was demeaning your process, which I get. So let's rewind and hear that again.
I came to this experience questioning whether marriage in general would be something I would ever want. I believe, though, that by questioning the idea of marriage, some of you may have felt that I was devaluing your goals in this experience. Please accept this apology and know that regardless of my views on marriage, which, surprise, have changed since I...
Okay. Yeah. I mean, one could argue that it's not an apology that she should be saying. She should be apologizing to Xander, and maybe she has, but it is recognition and also potentially appropriate given that I don't know if Vanessa being honest from beginning to end that she's not into marriage is a transgression upon Lexi. Do you know what I mean? It just, I always get worried that somehow I'm on the wrong side of the debate or something. That is there something that I'm missing? But Vanessa, from beginning to end, before they were on the show, when they're doing the interviews with Xander and Vanessa's just like, yeah, I don't want to get married. I don't want to be locked down. I've never wanted to get married. I get bored with things. I just cannot see myself committing to someone for the rest of my life. Isn't that okay? And isn't that the premise of the show, that you're dragging someone on with an ultimatum that might be that way? And and Vanessa never told anyone otherwise. She didn't trick Ray like, ooh, I want to be married to you. And Ray was like, okay, well, I want to be with you now because you want to get married. I think Ray might have even wanted to be with Vanessa because Ray doesn't want to get married either. So anyway, I keep yammering about that. But yeah, so, there's a lot of things that she could say, that she could have said here, that would have been a lot more problematic. I doubt this is going to win any favors from the table, though.
Yeah, I value you all. Thank you for listening.
I think that your apology is performative. So I just hope that you don't expect people to just brush it under the rug, not that you said sorry.
Do you want to hear apologies from Vanessa? No, duh. Doesn't make sense, but leave that little piece of openness in your heart, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone knows Vanessa, it's Xander. If anyone has a problem with Vanessa, it's Xander. I don't understand why they don't listen to Xander. Presumably, you're upset at Vanessa for the way Vanessa treats Xander, and Xander's telling you to knock it off? What's the deal? I don't understand. Again, I could be missing something, but I don't know. I kind of trust Xander. I feel like Xander from the beginning has exhibited a lot of maturity, a lot of health, a lot of good boundaries. When Xander was being pressured by Mildred to talk crap about Vanessa behind Vanessa's back, Xander was just like, hey, you can think, I'm not defending, feel free to feel what you want, but I'm just not going to do that. I just don't want to. She's not here, so let's talk about something else. And I don't get it. And then it makes me wonder, were the producers involved here? Were they trying to push something from behind the scenes? Because we could imagine that. And then the cast members might not be able to reveal that post-season, right? Lexi, Yoli. I mean, Lexi seems to have a particular problem with Vanessa, but I can imagine Yoli either being misinformed or something. Now, if they want to say, no, we're not talking, okay, fine, Xander, yeah. But for me, I'm upset at Vanessa because of all the things that happened while we were all together. I mean, the things that Vanessa she did this, she did that, and that was upsetting to me. If someone would, maybe they will, maybe they'll lock it down, because Lexi is saying she's upset at Vanessa for the way that Vanessa treated Ray, and Ray's like, I'm fine with Vanessa. So, if they personally did something to Lexi and to Yoli, then I hope that they voice that, because then I would say, fine, identify that. If you believe, and there's at least some evidence, even if it's a distortion, at least it would be a basis for their behavior towards Vanessa.
To allow for there to be growth here in general. That's what we're all here for.
And it's a possibility, but I'm worried that everyone will believe or accuse Xander of being gaslit, of being an abuse survivor of Vanessa, and thus is sticking up for the abusive, horrible Vanessa because Vanessa has beaten Xander down emotionally, which is possible, and it would look like this, but there's not evidence of that particularly.
In the physical sense, I'm not trying to consummate another relationship. I thought it would confuse things. I luckily ended up with somebody that has the same values as me.
Yeah. So Mal says something, it's sort of secondary to what they're getting at, but that Mal didn't want to consummate, I think meaning I didn't want to have sex, and totally fine, but it just points to the format of the show being misguided. There's so many other ways they could configure a process or an experiment like this without doing what they're doing, because that was what we saw during season 1. The whole premise, how you sell this show to the masses is you have this ultimatum. So there's this question: should we get married? Should we break up? And then you give both people an opportunity to be married to someone else. And it seems like no one actually treats that trial marriage as an actual marriage. And I can actually hear them languaging it, because I'm pretty sure they're told explicitly, do not talk about it as a trial relationship. You have to call it a trial marriage, because that's the premise of this show. It's sort of like how the producers are forcing everyone in Love is Blind to go to the altar, when most of them, if not all of them, that end up saying no at the altar would much rather say no earlier, right? And so they force them to do this, and it just seems fake. It's like, to me, how would I design this? Well, one, it would be just a horrible exercise to put people through, but I'm trying to think of a way of modifying this somehow. I guess it would be, what would it be like? Well, okay, so this is what I would do is, okay, you could call it hall pass or something, where instead of making everyone date each other, you just give them a chance to date whoever they want to, people who aren't even on the show. So I guess you would just follow all of the couples, the 5 couples, and they don't know each other. They might not even be in the same town, right? And then there's this point in time where they're all officially broken up and they are encouraged to date other people. And they don't move in with each other because that's way too fast. And so they date. And it's longer than 3 weeks. It's 6 months or 3 months or something. And then you follow them through that time. And then they get back together. And then you have these conversations. That would be much more in line with the premise of the show, because the individuals would, one, be free, have a real long vacation from their partner, which would have its pros and cons. For the person that's receiving the ultimatum, they might learn, ooh, I don't like being away from that person. I don't want to lose that person, something like that. Or you know what? I don't really miss that person. Because 3 weeks, especially under cameras the entire time and forced to live with someone you barely know, it'd be hardly a vacation from anything, right? So there'd be that. Also, if you give people to date who they want to date, there are probably people in their lives that they want to date. That there's, if you ask any of these people, it'd be like, okay, if your partner were to dump you today, who do you think you might date that you know right now in the next 6 months or so? I bet you most of them would say, well, there is this one person at work, or there is my former partner that I might go back to, or there is this person I have a crush on, or whatever. And then at least there's some chemistry there, some natural chemistry there, some natural attraction. The other thing, not living together, of course, just allows the relationship to develop normally, and you give it more time. Yeah, that's what I would do. But that doesn't sound great when you summarize it in one sentence, so it doesn't sell itself. So yeah, what we're hearing is that none of the trial marriages were actual trial marriages, and I guess what I'm annoyed with is that the show could be what its premise is purporting and could be really, really interesting, and yet I had to sit through all this footage of things where they're editing it in a way to make it look, and they're forced to say certain things to make it look like the way that the show proposes, but it isn't that. It's just a big song and dance. So, because there's real drama that's happening, obviously, right? And when the real drama, now you could argue, well, the way they do it here, you actually know the people that your partner is with, right? Because you met them, and it adds that layer of threat or of drama. So, yeah. That is, I guess, a benefit to their model. But anyway, what do you think?
And if it took this experience to bring you to that, that's beautiful. But it is easier to be, let's just say, cute with someone who you've only met and only known for 3 weeks. It's like, can you keep that consistently with someone you've been with for 3 years? Can that transfer over?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking the same thing that Yoli is saying. That, yeah, it's not hard to have a close friendship for 3 weeks in which there's nothing at stake and neither of you are romantically or sexually interested in each other. You are supportive of each other, you listen, you don't get in each other's way. There's probably not a lot of dependency on each other because you're not that attached, and it can absolutely be a positive experience. I don't deny that. But to make any conclusions based on that somehow this person is better than my partner or our relationship is better than my relationship with my partner, yeah, that's misguided completely. Because you give any of these individuals enough time, and the darker corners of their personalities will be touched upon and revealed, and possibly resulting in much more incompatibility between them. We don't know that, but I don't hear any strong conclusions that people are making based on the trial marriages. But yeah, I had been thinking the same thing. But I think the cast members are coached, or it's suggested, or they feel the energy that they're from the producers that they're supposed to talk this way, that they're supposed to amplify or elevate these trial marriages because it's the game that you're supposed to play. It kind of has that feel to it. Because I'm always surprised that these smart individuals, that none of them say something like, well, let's be honest, we all understood that this was all kind of a sham, right? None of us thought that we were actually going to get married to this person, we barely know. So let's be real. Like, I'm just surprised that no one ever says that, because it just seems so obvious.
Obviously, to hear this, I have to say that, I've grown, and Ray can, she can back me up here. I want a marriage with you now, and I recognize that I haven't for a long time, but all the ways you're talking about you're connecting with Yoli, I feel like I'm ready for now, and I hope you're open.
It's really stark, the difference between Vanessa now and Vanessa earlier on in the season. And Xander's friend was helpful in pointing out that that was something that was observed in a lot of contexts, that when Vanessa is uncomfortable, Vanessa makes it all about her, and maybe also is hostile and highly problematic. So it stands to reason, based on what's happening, is that Vanessa was extremely uncomfortable in that first week and is now less uncomfortable, far less uncomfortable, and can be more of herself because the way she's phrasing things is some of the most healthy stuff we've seen on the show. I mean, not mal healthy, but in that direction. That she's saying without any seeming pressure of I've changed, I've grown, and I now see the value in committing. And then because I was worried, because I don't know if I showed the clip, but Xander and Yoli were talking about how they had really connected, and Vanessa asked, did you guys get together physically this whole time? And they basically didn't want to answer, which kind of gives an answer, right? And so for Vanessa, I was like, uh-oh, are we going to see that triggering that happened in the beginning? And maybe it will happen eventually, but at least in the first week, the triggering was so fast and the behavior was so fast that it looked different than this. For Vanessa right now, she's like, oh, okay, well, that hurts. And that's good. It's very healthy, very normal to say, wow, it doesn't feel good to know that you two connected. And then she launches into this.
Into that because I want you. Is your heart in these next 3 weeks, or if you had the choice, would you live with Yoli for 3 more weeks?
Yeah, and also a very healthy question asked in a non-coercive, pressuring way. It's a good question, very healthy, differentiated questions. And Vanessa's, it's interesting, I wonder if for Vanessa, given my hypothesis about her and her needs and her conclusion about, I've been hypothesizing that she might actually desperately want connection and stability more than she realizes, maybe more than anyone at that table. And because of traumas, she actually will deny that about herself and even go into denial about that to herself. And that results in her being wishy-washy when it comes to commitment. But then when that is threatened, she actually feels that fear and that desire, which can happen sometimes. And I guess that would justify the model of this process on the show to some extent. Anyway, so then Vanessa says, hey, Xander, I want to be with you now. And then Xander doesn't really give an affirmative response. And so Vanessa, instead of I was like, I just keep waiting for the other shoe to drop with Vanessa. But then Vanessa very healthily asks, so do you want to be with me, or would you rather be with Yoli or by yourself? Giving Xander a chance to state how they want to, what they want to do. Because that is the question, right? It's not that Vanessa won't be hurt by that, but that is the critical question. Instead of bulldozing or trying to put down Yoli or trying to coerce or saying, I don't care about you, there's a lot of defenses that could kick in instead of the critical question being asked. So let's see what Xander says. I keep wondering if Vanessa's, problematic side, it might emerge if Vanessa is sufficiently hurt and uncomfortable.
I feel like that, honestly, is something that you and I need to discuss alone. That the whole table doesn't need to hear right now.
I know you want to talk about it privately, but I feel like a fool if I were to enter into 3 weeks with you if you would prefer to not be with me.
Vanessa, this person that you love, they say.
Okay, I totally understand Xander. That's how I would be. I'd be like, do we have to? But you're on a reality TV show, so like, that's the whole thing. But that's what I would do. Like when I would watch 90 Day Fiancé and there was Mike and Natalie, if you remember them, Mike would often not answer questions to the producers or answer in a very sneaky way. And my impression was that there would be potentially hours of the producers trying to pry stuff out of Mike, and Mike just is private. He just refuses to answer. But the storyline, the drama of Natalie was so compelling to the bottom line of the show, meaning that they get a lot of viewers to watch because of them, that they kept involving Mike and Natalie. I think under normal circumstances, the producers would say, if they don't play ball, they're not coming back. Because when they come, a lot of the cast members want to come back because they get more Instagram followers and a little bit of more money. So for the producers, they don't like it when people don't reveal the drama on camera. Some of them will even say, you're under contract to reveal it on camera. So But I commend Xander for drawing a boundary. Like, I don't want to talk about it here. Now, maybe Xander's thinking, look, producers, we'll do it away from these people. The cameras will still be here, but I just don't want all these folks to be around.
This,
We weren't either.
I don't think any of us were.
At all.
yeah, I'm sure. My heart's broken. I've been definitely, like I entered this experience and I've focused on growing to the point where I thought I could meet you, which was the point of marriage.
Okay, I think we're starting. I think Xander, well, who knows what's going through. Xander might be like, well, I was going to end it, so might as well be this. Or is Xander thinking, no, Vanessa, I wanted to talk with you behind closed doors. But it does make sense where Vanessa is. I mean, just imagine that. So I'll just put myself in Vanessa's shoes, which is weird, but for some reason, let's just say this type of question comes up with my wife, and I was, to ask her, so do you want to be with me? Do you want to go home with me? Is that something you want to do or not? And my wife was like, you know what? I don't want to talk about it right here. That'd be really hurtful. Even if the answer is kind of nuanced, what you want to hear from your spouse, your partner, is 100%. Now, does Xander have the right to have some nuance or even some boundaries about when to talk about that? Yes. Does Xander have reasons to have some major questions about their relationship with Vanessa? Yeah. After being with Yoli, Xander might be like, oh, this is kind of nicer, and I have some major questions right now. So there's nothing, Xander doesn't owe Vanessa anything, but it makes sense that Vanessa would be upset and hurt and concerned, particularly if we believe Vanessa, that Vanessa turned a corner and is now actually wanting to commit just to be rejected seemingly would be hurtful. And so I'm worried that Vanessa's going to engage in her defense.
Can
I just want to add, that I am not retreating from anything. If anything, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think that everyone still loves who they came here with, and they still care about who they came here with. If anything, we added new growth and new feelings for other people.
Okay, so even from my distance perspective, I don't know how to interpret that. It sounded like what Xander was saying was, no, I still want to be with you. There seemed to be some statements around that. There also could be a possibility that producers literally told everyone, you can't answer the following questions, or you can't commit in the following ways until the end, right? Because that's the other premise of the show, if you don't know, is that they have another 3 weeks of another trial marriage with their original partner. And at the end of that process, they publicly declare whether they want to be with their trial person or their original person or single. So they all declare that. And for Xander might be like, we're under contract to not reveal, I think, what what Vanessa is asking me to commit to.
And that doesn't diminish what we came here with in the beginning. I definitely want this experience with you.
Okay, so I'm guessing a lot of you were like, Kirk, just wait, Xander's about to say. Okay, so it looks like we're not going to threaten Vanessa's sense of worthlessness, and we're not going to, at this point, see an explosion from Vanessa. I mean, mainly, if Vanessa explodes, she harms other people, and that's wrong. So that's a huge thing right there for me. But I think for everyone that Vanessa harms, they have a more stable personality and a sense of themselves, or a way through the woods. Maybe not Lexi, and maybe not Mildred, I suppose. But, the rest of the crowd will move on with their lives. For Vanessa, when she explodes like that, and rightfully so, people consequence her for that behavior, and then Vanessa suffers more. The same goes for Mildred. When Mildred, we haven't seen much of Mildred and Aussie as much as we have Vanessa. And when Mildred was going down that road of hostility with Aussie, we can't know the exact situation, but it was potentially re-traumatizing herself by recreating the abandonment that she went through when you could argue even just choosing Aussie to begin with was an effort to recreate that. And I feel pain when people go down those roads. It's painful to watch. people can engage in problematic behavior, and it's painful to watch them do that to other people, absolutely. But often the people who do that are suffering 100 times more than any kind of suffering that they impose on other people. Not all the time, of course. So I guess I'm just concerned for everyone involved. Okay, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.